question is, why not now?
This Week in History, the one where Congress gave out reparations to a group persecuted by the United States. Yeah, it happened. That's why this week we're asking, why did President Reagan sign a reparations bill for Japanese Americans in 1988? Let's first go back to 1941. That's when the Japanese surprise attacked Pearl Harbor. Right afterwards, anti-Japanese sentiment swept across the country, specifically on the West Coast. There was this strange fear that developed that Japanese Americans were leading double lives as spies. I should mention there was no evidence of this whatsoever. In fact, there was one intelligence report that found that Japanese spies were far more likely to attempt to recruit white and African American citizens than Japanese Americans. By 1942, Congress voted to remove roughly 120,000 Japanese Americans from their homes and put them into internment camps. The financial toll alone was extreme. Japanese Americans lost their homes, they lost their businesses in some cases, and that's not even to mention the mental toll of being ripped out of your home and placed in a camp for 3 years until the end of the war. All because you're a Japanese American. Now, there was an attempt in 1948 to financially compensate those removed from their homes and stuck in the camps. However, only about a quarter of Japanese Americans were actually able to participate in the program. By the 1960s, younger Japanese Americans began a campaign to try to achieve reparations for them and their families. While the movement gained momentum in the 70s, it wasn't until this week in 1988 when reparations became a real thing for Japanese Americans. That's when President Reagan approved a law that gave $20,000 to any living Japanese American who'd been placed in an internment camp. And it cost the government around $1 billion. Now, it still pales in comparison to the roughly $6 billion lost by Japanese Americans over the course of the war. 50 years is a long time to wait to make things somewhat right. Is it so far off to think that things can still be made somewhat right 150 years later for a group that was illegally enslaved and then preyed upon for decades following emancipation? That's kind of a question for Congress. Hey, thanks for watching This Week in History. If you liked it, give us a like and a subscribe. And if you're a hater, we accept delicious snacks sent to our building, especially ones that have chocolate.